Recorded live at Talks and Tasting Studios, it's the Clerical Errors Podcast, the podcast that shows you what's behind the collar. Let's go.
From the Talks and Tastings Studios, this is the Clerical Errors Podcast.
I'm Berg.
I'm Vicar.
I'm Pastor. Peter's here.
Yeah, there's more than just one pastor. Try again.
Recorded live at Talks and Tasting Studios, it's the Clerical Errors Podcast, the podcast that shows you what's behind the collar. Let's go.
From the Talks and Tastings Studios, this is the Clerical Errors Podcast, the show that shows you what's behind the collar. I'm Bollhagen.
I'm Berg.
And I'm Vicar.
And Peter's here.
Hey, Pete.
No Bert today. So, one of those things where it's hard to get everyone scheduled together. But we're here doing a show. Got a lot of interesting, hopefully, things coming up. I've got a beverage here.
Yeah, I see that.
Interesting, so I had another scope down my throat.
Yeah,
and
everything healing up.
They can't really tell until they have to take biopsies of the tissues.
Okay.
Which sounds horrible. Like, oh no, you have cancer. No, it's nothing like that. It's just to see how much eosinophils are in my esophagus.
What are eosinophils?
Eosinophils. It's a type of white blood cell.
Okay. Kind of reminded me of Yosemite Sam from Looney Tunes.
That could be the EOE mascot.
Because he's mad and
right, and
he's got red hair and your esophagus has been inflamed and angry. So
okay. Eosyphilic Sam. Yeah, I'll find out. So right now, the last couple of months, not only have I not had wheat or dairy, so the last 2 months, then I've also gone without soy and egg. And if I don't have any improvements, then I add nut and fish.
Oh my gosh.
So
how could you not start adding in the other stuff? It's clearly not the problem.
Because it could be more than one.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So if that helps, then we slowly start introducing
other. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard of something like this before. A lot of families, when they think a kid has an allergy, they do the 30 days thing, the 30 for 30 days, where they cut out basically everything. It sounds horrifying.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, it's all right. I suppose long term it's healthier for me just because I'm eating, intentionally have to eat nothing that's processed, because if it's processed, it generally has one of those things. So,
right.
A lot of stuff where I know what's in it and that kind of thing. So it isn't too bad.
You're going to outlive us all, Bollhagen.
Well, the reason I brought that up is not to gain sympathy for our listener. It's because one thing that's not on the list is Diet Mountain Dew Code Red.
See, I'm surprised that they let you drink any sort of carbonated beverage.
So yeah, oddly enough, I can't have wheat, milk, eggs,
but Code Red.
But yeah, Mountain Dew Code Red, all clear.
The big news is here that they make Diet Mountain Dew Code Red.
Well, it's for the health conscious, Peter.
Of course.
Yeah,
yes. That's
exactly right. So all those benefits of you eating right now, completely gone now that you've had this thing.
Yeah, well they have it. It's on the list.
Well, pop that sucker open,
right,
and let us know.
Do you have allergic reaction to just basic chemicals? This sounds like something more Hannah might be able to answer. She's really good with that food thing.
Right. Well, and I would have thought too that you're it would just inflame it, even further,
Right.
Because it's a little more acidic and,
Yeah, but the thing is, it's a certain type of white blood cell that thinks that there's an infection. So it's not just
So it's actually an autoimmune disease?
Kind of, but if it's an allergy, it's still attacking the allergen.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it's not attacking necessarily my body.
Right.
So.
Oofda.
So But,
All right.
But
Well,
diet.
I was gonna say, while I appreciate the discussion, can we continue on to
You
something that isn't your esophagus?
We're totally not ill prepared for this show.
I mean, on the one hand, it is literally behind your collar.
Exactly. You know.
That is true. And I'm a little tired today because it always, when they put you under for a little bit, it takes a little while for that stuff to get out of your system. But I figured a little Code Red would help with that.
I always hate. Did they put you completely under?
They do it where they say, well, you're not going to remember anything.
Oh, one of them partial ones,
Right.
kind of like they do for the colonoscopies.
Right.
So, yeah. All right. So moving on. Vicar, what are you drinking?
Just got some hot chocolate in the thermos.
Oh man, are you a big hot chocolate connoisseur?
Trying to be, because
All right.
I'm not a fan of coffee, so I need a hot beverage I can drink.
Are you one of the water people, or are you one of the milk people?
Whichever version's available.
Okay.
See, I'm not the milk guy right
preference.
now.
Yeah, you got to be the water guy. So how about you, Peter?
So I think I prefer milk, but I don't have a strong preference. But like I feel like you have to have a preference, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to taste test again and see. That might be something on the podcast we do.
I
in the
think
future.
for you guys would probably prefer water because you've been drinking coffee for so long.
Oh, quick tip though. Okay, so I've been trying to up my protein intake with protein shakes.
Okay.
Problem is, most protein shakes are made
Wheat.
out of whey
Yeah.
protein. So I found on Amazon a protein that's just all that it is not all it is, beef protein in powder form.
Okay.
Right.
Surely not purely by natural processes. I'm sure that they take meat to make it into a white powder. Anyways, and
Completely natural.
and I put some. Have you ever seen that powdered peanut?
Oh yeah. I actually use that for brewing.
Okay,
Yeah, because peanut you can't use regular peanut butter because of the oils.
right.
So
So I put some of that in there, and then a little almond butter. This is all going to change when they tell me I can't eat nuts, by the way. And then, to top it off, sounds strange, an avocado.
yeah, that does sound strange.
Oh, seriously though.
Most places in the world, avocado is considered a dessert.
It
Really?
makes it so creamy and delightful.
Ugh.
It does.
It sounds weird, but as somebody who's never tried that, I can say that it is socially acceptable outside of the United States.
Yeah, so
do something
I
like
am more, as the more cultured person in this room,
I would say so. You are very cultured, Bollhagen.
as I
What
sip
was it
on
we
my
were just talking about
Mountain Dew
before
Code
the
Red?
podcast about you didn't know what Cthulhu was?
Yeah,
or
yeah,
Lovecraft or
Cthulhu?
anything.
I don't know.
Well, that's just fringe, Peter.
Oh, of course.
No, actually, I don't know if it can be considered fringe. I'd say that's pretty mainstream these days.
Well, how would I know about it? See, that's
you
the
know,
thing. Like everyone knows about it, except
you. I don't know. I honestly, I don't know.
I don't know.
Peter, how did you find out about Cthulhu?
I have the internet.
There,
Yeah.
there you go.
I have an internet connection. The tube connects to my computer, and I can see it.
So because of I have internet, how would I be searching for Cthulhu when I don't know about Cthulhu?
Peter, can you answer this one?
Osmosis.
Okay.
Well, you do like the hyperlinks, right? So like you're reading in Wikipedia, and you see another thing, and so you just like
Click the next
Wait,
the
let me
next
stop you
deal.
there. He doesn't read.
Oh yeah, I forget. Sorry.
So he needs someone
Well,
to read
hey,
to him.
haven't I suggested the podcast The White Vault to you?
Yes,
Have you listened to it yet?
I have not. I remember writing it down, and then I left it.
And then you forgot about it.
Right.
Yep.
He might like overly
There's a theme.
he might like overly sarcastic productions. They've got
Well,
Is that a deal?
it's a YouTube channel.
Well, my
Oh,
family
okay.
makes fun of me. There's a commercial. Have you ever seen this commercial? It's like a golf where there's a golf putt, and the announcers are being very quiet, and then a creature pops out of the lake and grabs a golfer, and the announcer says, "Yes, I believe that's a Krakenbruce." And so, after watching that commercial, I thought the name of that creature was a Krakenbruce. And so I kept on threatening people. I'm gonna pull out the Krakenbruce. And I thought the animal was called.
No way! Really?
Peter?
Is this real?
Peter.
Oh my gosh,
I can confirm,
dude.
Yeah, I thought it was a Krakenbruce.
Well, there's this great YouTube video about basically it's like making fun of the Mormon missionary deals, only with like the Necronomicon and the old ones.
Okay, now you lost me.
Oh, it's hilarious. I don't know. We should play that if we need filler there.
Well,
buddy,
we're doing a pretty good job of filling our show with nothing already.
man. I still don't get you made it how far as a pastor? Isn't this kind of the stuff that you would just by osmosis?
Well, yeah. There are times where a really troubled individual comes in, and they knock on my door and they say, "Pastor, I need to talk." Yeah. What's a Krakenbruce? I was gonna say these other mythical creatures, but I don't remember what they're called.
Oh man, because I mean, this would there are role playing games, there's video games, right?
Yeah,
it's a big deal out.
It's
nowadays.
you know what a vampire is, right?
Sure.
Where'd you learn that from?
I don't know.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, I mean that's been around.
Yeah, so has Cthulhu.
Cthulhu's been around since I think Call of Cthulhu was written in 1931.
Okay.
So I mean it's been around for 80 years, 90 years now.
And there's stuff like him that's been stories for even longer.
Right, James Hodgson, his ghost stories, for example. Arthur Machen, the great god Pan, Algernon Blackwood. So...
All right, I didn't get most of those.
Well, when you're an
honest.
aficionado, I mean, it kind of,
In the entirety of Norse and Greco-Roman mythology, there's monsters all over the place.
Right, so even in the Odyssey, you've got the Cyclops, you've got the Sirens, you've got all that kind of stuff, so...
Well, how about this? Can either of you describe the infield fly rule?
I cannot.
It probably doesn't involve an outfielder, does it?
So,
No, that's fair. There was a video posted that I was laughing at with, the people on Jeopardy with the last category being all football things, and they're just all blanking on it. I don't know any of them either. So, yeah.
So
to each his own.
So I apologize to listener who are looking for deep theological discussion today. We should probably stop talking about the Krakenbruce, the mythical creature.
Yeah, it's gonna take some time to edit.
So, yes. So the title of the show will be Release the Krakenbruce.
I think it'll just be the Krakenbruce.
All right, so...
what are you preaching on, Berg?
Well, what is the Sunday coming up? What's its significance? And then the text.
Yeah, we are on Quinquagesima. So this is the last Sunday before the beginning of Lent. In fact, it's the last Sunday right before Ash Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
So the reading would be Luke 18:31-43. And
there are really two parts to this, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's a part where Jesus... Excuse me, code red.
Yeah, it is kind of a two-part section. The first is Christ, predicting his death for the third time. And the second part is while on the road to Jerusalem, nearing Jericho, Christ heals a blind man.
So one reason, obviously, why it would be chosen as the last Sunday of pre-Lent is obviously Jesus' predictions of his death.
Mm-hmm.
And is there...
You know what I think is funny? Is a big thing you learn about in school is foreshadowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you read something early in the book or you watch a movie and something happens, right? And then it comes, it has big significance later.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Think of a movie where that happens.
Actually, I use that to the Sixth Sense, for
right.
example. I actually used that in Bible study the other day because we were talking about the Old Testament theology, and the Old Testament, how it's in a way the Jewish people knew a lot about who Jesus would be, but they weren't able to put all the pieces together. So it's kind of like when Jesus comes and after the resurrection, And on Pentecost, when we have all those Jews there who were there for the Passover, that when Peter preaches, that
it's like you find out that Bruce Willis is dead.
Right. All those other things in the Old Testament, which seem maybe strange or mundane, all of a sudden, boom, it's all starting to make sense now.
And the great thing is just like that movie, you can only watch it or read it once, but then once you know the punchline, then you can never watch it the same way again.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with the Old Testament.
And so when Peter says, well, how come David, for example, he says, how come David says, my Lord, but it's also his son? How can that be? Boom. Because it's Jesus.
Indeed. So, and I was just going to say about foreshadowing here, Jesus isn't very subtle about foreshadowing.
No.
Like, he's not like, there's going to be some troubled waters ahead. No. He tells them exactly what's going to happen. He's like, look, this is where we're going. This is what's going to happen. They're going to kill me, and I'm going to rise again on the third day.
Well, especially since literally the next chapter is the entry into Jerusalem. So they're quite literally, 40 miles away?
Right.
And 1 week out, so he doesn't really have time to...
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing.
Subtle.
It's like there's no subtlety here. There's no hiding this. He just comes out and says it, right?
And the disciples, my take on how the disciples listen to it, they're just like, oh, there's Jesus being a Debbie Downer again.
It could be. Another thing, too, is just, it hasn't been revealed to them yet. I mean, the Holy Spirit works where and when he wills, and, it's been hidden from them. They're actually spiritually blind here because I think had they been able to perceive it, they would have tried to stop it.
And also, why were they so surprised when Jesus rose from the dead?
Because once again, it's just it's not clicking, right? They are still
Right.
It's still hidden from them, right? And it's interesting there because that's a passive, right? It's not that they hid it from themselves, but it is. This is something that the Holy Spirit actually sometimes does. He sometimes hides things from us, and that's not the worst thing in the world either. Because hopefully that'll drive you well. What did we cover last week? We covered oratio, meditatio, and tentatio, right? I mean, hopefully that blindness, that spiritual blindness, that's tentatio, right? When you don't understand something that the Scripture says, what should that do? It should drive you right back to prayer, right? The Anfechtung, the tentatio, the temptation or the affliction, isn't just something out there, outside of yourself. Sometimes it's your own spiritual blindness. And this then drives us back to prayer.
Which actually drives us back to the text, because
Right.
no sooner does Jesus say this is going to happen, a man encounters him, basically. It really focuses on the man's experience, if I remember correctly from the text. And he cries out, Son of David, have mercy on me. Which, while Jesus' predictions kind of falls on deaf ears, yet here, this blind man, can actually see. I mean,
Right.
that's not just Jesus heal me, that's Son of David, have mercy, which is a little more profound than we might think.
Right. And that, I believe it, doesn't it say your faith has saved you in the Greek? Again, rather than made you well.
Yeah.
And then we see that this guy follows Jesus, right? Glorifying God. Another interesting thing here is just the, it's amazing. And it's kind of it's aggravating to pastors, but it's also very comforting to pastors because we have people in our congregations that we've taught for years, just like Jesus taught the disciples, and they still don't get it. And it's very aggravating at times. But then you have this blind man sitting by the road who maybe heard a few things about Jesus here and there, and he's got a much more profound faith than the disciples do, right? And that just shows, too, that all this stuff, like, you can have the best schools, you can preach every single day, have the best sermons, but without the Holy Spirit, without his blessing, without him opening our eyes, everybody will remain blind.
Yes.
And it's also a comfort because...
Can I put it in my terms?
Yeah, go for it.
We're not natty, bro.
Yeah, see? Making references back. Go listen to that episode if you haven't listened already.
The one of my favorite segments, which I'm not sure if everyone else gets, but that's okay.
Hey, that one was good, right? Because faith isn't natural, right?
Right.
It's a gift of it's a gift of God. It's a gift of the Holy Spirit, and that's the thing too. Is like that's very comforting for us that this blind guy, we don't know how he came to the faith. That he might have heard a few little passing messages about Jesus, but it's not like he sat at Jesus' feet for years. It's not that he, and yet he has a much deeper and profound faith than even the disciples. So it shows that no word spoken is ever in vain.
And perhaps it was, what the Bible says of David that helped enlighten him. Kind of like, what we talked about at the end of the movie where okay, Jesus dies, he rises from the dead, and all of a sudden it starts to make sense to people. And then they can preach it to Jews who, okay, now it makes sense. Maybe he had some more of those things that helped him put things together about who the Messiah was.
Mm-hmm. I even think in John, I don't know if that's a parallel here, but the man born blind, I mean, like he goes to the synagogue and they kick him out, right? He doesn't even know who Jesus is, right? He doesn't even know Jesus' name. I mean, we wouldn't have passed him in any catechism class. I mean, we would fail him. But his faith is strong enough, right? Even though it is living on the barest, the leanest bit of part-time, right? His faith is strong enough to stand against the rulers of the synagogue, against the cowardice of his own parents, and he goes and he finds Jesus. And
there's something beautiful then about this whole conversation with this blind man, and that is, while everyone may have been focused on what they saw, if you're blind by nature, you have to trust in what you're told.
Right.
His faith came by hearing. It didn't come by seeing because he couldn't. It came by hearing. And even when you say, well, he obviously knew that miracles will happen. Well, how did he know? Someone told him.
Right.
He didn't see any of them. They
Right.
told him. And I think that is, Vicar, I'm not sure how far along in your sermon you are.
I'm far enough that this isn't really getting me derailed any.
Okay.
Because I was looking also at the epistle reading for this week, which is 1 Corinthians 13.
Oh, love.
Right. And so here we've got this act of Christ's mercy and love of healing this man, even as he's on his way to the cross to show ultimate love.
Now, it's interesting because Luke brings up a very interesting detail about where this takes place, right? It takes place in Jericho. And, I mean, there's a lot you could riff off of there. I mean, everything from the walls falling down, which was once again by sound and not by sight. It being rebuilt, which was actually not something they were supposed to do. And it's interesting, too, where Jericho is. Jericho is known as the City of Palms, right? And it's not that far from Jerusalem in terms of miles, but elevation-wise, they have very different climates. Actually, the Jericho is in almost a tropical climate. That's why it has palm trees, where Jerusalem is so high up that it's more of a temperate continental climate, which is really amazing. So I think even just the place you can riff off of a lot there, right? The beginning of the conquest, all of the things that...
The story of the Good Samaritan, there's...
Right, exactly,
So we do have something we haven't heard in a while, and that is we have a Western update. Find out what's going behind the newly minted collar from 15.0, which we now can call Baldwin. He's no longer a number.
Ah, man.
He's not like 17, who's still a number.
Right.
16 still a number. Well, hopefully,
Yeah.
So, and by the way, our congregation approved to get number 18.
Nice.
This past weekend. So
No, that's wonderful. Thanks be to God.
So let's hear from. Hey, Peter, is this okay? Maybe it's too much work. Could we add, since Bert's not here, Bert saying Peter play the intro?
I'd rather keep. That'd be confusing.
Okay, all right. Because I don't know if you listened to the last one, he had to leave early, so we had him say a bunch of Peter play the intros like before he left.
That's pretty funny.
Well, I mean,
I'm gonna do that later
Here,
today.
I'll try to be our Bert for today. Okay.
All right.
Ready. Peter, play the intro.
Wow, you even did the finger thing.
I did.
Yeah,
You
the
got-
finger.
You got it. You got to get it into character,
Wow.
right?
You said that like a Krakenbruce.
That's the way I roll, man. It's the way I roll.
Hey Clerics, it's another Western update. Baldwin coming to you out here from the Western Satellite Campus. This evening I've got a Sam Adams Boston Lager, which personally is probably one of my favorite just all-around beers. Not too light, not too dark, not too hoppy, not too bitter, just good all year round. So,
Stop.
you know,
So that's what we call a Goldilocks beer,
A Goldilocks beer?
right? It's not too bitter. It's not too this. It's not too that. It's just right.
Just right.
So we're glad you're
You know, I
enjoying
think
that,
I've-
Baldwin.
I think I've had a Sam Adams once, and it was in an airport.
Was it good?
It was okay.
I mean, like if I go out to a restaurant, like to B-dubs, which I
That's
haven't
always a
been
go-to. Like Sam Adams Tap is, if you can get that, is good.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's hard to find a good
Their
beer.
Oktoberfest is good.
I like their 76. It's pretty fruity. I like that kind of fruity kind of beer.
Actually, that was one of the most disappointing experiences was from Sam Adams. Their winter lager, where they put like spices in it. It's kind of like you're drinking it in your living room and you accidentally spilt some potpourri in it.
Yeah, I like Founders. So, as a brewery, they've got a Backwoods Bastard that's really good. It's a bourbon barrel aged beer. It's amazing.
So back to our update.
if you're not sure what to get a Sam Adams Boston Lager. You really can't go wrong. So it's been a while since I've had an update, and I apologize about that. It's been kind of crazy. A while back, you guys did an episode on Christmas fatigue, and I can I can relate now. Man, so, you go through your first Advent and Christmas, you're preaching, twice, 3 times a week, and then it just so happened that the week after Christmas, I had 4 different people that I knew. Some, were from a while back. Others were pretty close, like one of my classmates and my grandmother, who died. So, yeah, in the 3 days after Christmas, I had 4 different people die. So that was, that kind of added on to that fatigue. And then here just recently, I've got COVID and I've got over it, and now my wife has COVID and she's still recovering. So, it's been kind of an adventure, which leads me to kind of, I guess, the main observation for this update, the look behind a newly minted collar. A pastor's workload, a pastor's schedule can really vary a lot. It's definitely not a 9 to 5 sort of job where you just, you go in, you have your schedule, you punch out at the end of the day. Sometimes, you've got some free time. Other times, it's the middle of Advent and someone dies during the week, and now you've got 3 sermons, plus that presentation for your Winkle that's coming up in the following week, and so you're working like crazy. And so I've been blessed. I was blessed on vicarage. Credits to you, Pastor Bollhagen, for driving this point home that, sometimes when things are light, you can take a little extra time and relax, spend time with your family, do things you might not get to, when those really crazy times come, because they are going to come, and you're going to be there in the office late, you're going to be going in early. And so just, for our listeners, if you don't know that already, just something to perhaps keep in mind when you're watching your pastor and seeing what he does, that, you never know. He might be having a crazy week. He might be taking a little time off where he's got time to do that. So,
All right, stop it for a sec. So as we think about this, that is an interesting, maybe behind the collar moment, and that is our schedules really are different. Or now,
Yeah.
when you work out your schedule, do you have like certain times I'm going to work from here to here, How do you do that?
Well, when I first got there, I had these grand plans, and it all just fell apart. I mean, with the school, with the meetings I have, it's very difficult to plan my week. I feel it's pretty.
It is.
It's very hard to plan my week in any way. And then when my son was born, my wife actually works at the school too, so my afternoons get shortened because I'm watching him for 2 hours. So it's a little.
Mm-hmm.
It's been more of a adjustment to try and make sure everything gets done that needs to get done while fulfilling all of my obligations.
And the one thing that's interesting about what I've learned over the years, as far as when it comes to scheduling, is you could say 50 hours or 40 hours, but it's interesting. Hours aren't the same. You know what I mean? If you're for example, if you spend an hour and a half with someone in a death situation, okay, you might say, well, that was only an hour and a half of work.
Yeah, it was like 6 hours. Honestly, it feels like 6 hours.
Right. Or Sunday morning, for example, you say, well, I work from 8 to 11:30. And that as far as energy wise and brain power, and when you get home, it doesn't just feel like a.
Right. And I know I've had one of my biggest struggles has been leaving it because, we don't really have a church office in the church.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working at home a lot. And just being able to step away from it and not think about, especially the bad things. That's the thing is, it's not just the schedule. I mean, the schedule I can handle if it's something outside, but it's the running through things in your mind again and again and again.
Yeah.
And not being able to take a step back from it. I think that's the most exhausting and probably the worst part of it,
Some of the more of like a interpersonal stuff too, just like how wrestling with other people what's going on and.
Yeah, and just the, it does. It causes you anxiety because you want it to all work out well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun when you're in conflict. It's not fun when you have to rebuke people on the basis of God's word.
Good. One of I think one of my favorite top 12 list was the Helping Pastor Sleep episode, where I'm not sure which one that was, but it was because there are certain things that you can do to help your pastor sleep because we wrestle with a lot of stuff.
Number 13 on that list. We really shouldn't have meetings too late at night because especially if it's bad. I don't know about you, but I have a hard time. I have a hard time sleeping at those meetings, especially if things go south, But so no, I mean it's a struggle. I mean, I'm glad it's just the schedule stuff at this point, but being able to disengage and walk away from it mentally is a huge skill that I don't know. I'm still learning.
Because, when we talk about pastor burnout, a lot of pastors get, I think there's been a lot of that since COVID, especially.
Right.
And it's kind of interesting in some ways during COVID when you might say, well, there's a little more pastor burnout. What's interesting is their schedules actually may have been less busy.
Right.
Because they weren't able to make as many visits. Or as many services or as many Bible studies. Sometimes it did actually produce extra work. Sometimes it made things slower. And when pastors get burnt out, it's generally not because they're working 80 hours a week.
No, I mean, like, if you've got somebody in the hospital or dying and, honestly, that's, like, the best part of the job.
Mm-hmm.
Because people love to see you. And, it's the mental game.
Mm-hmm. And for me being here, for example, I went through our picture book with Vicar, my first picture book when I was here.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you go through page after page, and there are pages where half of the people on the page are now dead.
Right.
That for me, that over time, that gets to kind of be kind of a weight to carry around.
Right.
When you get to, a lot of them are shut-ins you visited, 50, 60 times, precious members you've gotten to know, tragedies, and then you think, well, it's not like, when every one of those, to a certain degree, you are emotionally involved in all of them. And
Right.
and you think, well, I've had 180, 200 of them, that does sometimes kind of be a weight as well.
Right.
But as far as schedule, to get back to Baldwin's point, I think it's important for pastors to not feel bad necessarily about taking time when they need it, or to realize that, some things may have only taken, I was only at someone's deathbed for an hour and a half. I should be able to do, 6.5 hours the rest of the day to fill everything out.
Yeah. Nope.
No.
Nope.
I think sometimes there is.
Well, people feel guilty.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one thing. The church will exist without you.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's
okay to take some time. And, with schedules, you just have to see where you're at and what your obligations are. I mean, some parishes are a lot a lot easier than other parishes in order to schedule your time.
And there's a lot of times where pastors doing things that no one knows about, or helping someone, or dealing
Right.
with issues that,
But one thing I would encourage is to always make time to study. It's the first thing to fall by the wayside when you get busy. But that's part of your duty as a pastor is, you can't give anything if you don't have anything in the tank. And so
and to, for me, when you're talking about scheduling, hopefully I've taught the vicars some of this. I've talked to you maybe a little bit of just knowing when you're going to be productive and when you're not.
Right.
There are certain times where I know, if I were to try and do something, I might be able to do it. Otherwise, I'm just going to be completely distracted because it's not a secret, I have attention issues sometimes.
no.
Yeah, that's true. And so, knowing, and if I don't think I'm going to be productive at anything, let's say I'm going to set up this time to study and to work on the sermon, and then this is not working, well, I'm going to go see someone.
Yep, go do something else.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. I'm a morning person. I get my, that's why I work in the mornings. Mornings are the best time for me. At night, get about 7 o'clock, there's not a lot I can do anymore. I am about at the end of my rope. Now, there's a pastor in our circuit. He is definitely not a morning person.
No.
But he would stay up till like 3 o'clock in the morning working on his PhD when everybody else was asleep.
Right.
So, it's like just know yourself, exegete the congregation, and,
How Vicar, because you have an interesting situation as compared to most vicars, is you've got probably a more active household than most vicars. How would you describe what you've learned in this time so far?
Yeah, with regards to scheduling, I learned a long time ago that I have to keep myself on something because I'm a procrastinator. Mm-hmm. So if I don't map out at least here's some general, this is when I would like to get this worked on. Mm. Like I've got a weekly calendar right now where I've literally got it blocked out. Okay, this day for 2 hours I'm going to work on the Bible study. This day for an hour and a half I'm working on Sunday school, and so on. And I know it's going to move, stuff's going to happen, but if I at least have that written down, it keeps me honest.
So, all right. Peter,
You
continue.
want to talk about scheduling? Holy cow! Getting the three of you, three pastors and a vicar together for a weekly podcast. Holy cow!
yeah, it's like herding cats, isn't it?
Yeah.
It
It's
really
kind of
is.
funny. Our associate podcast mom is on that text link too, even though she doesn't really join us for that. But she must just look at our text chain and like, you people.
I imagine she is supremely frustrated by our inefficiency.
I'll admit, I'd like it if it was every Thursday at this time we're going to do this, but
Well, we deal with a
never
producer
gonna-
who has a different
Right,
schedule every
right.
week.
Hey, you know what? If we want to do a morning, I always tell you guys, I can do it whenever. I just give up sleep. That's fine.
See, and that's the hard thing for me is doing it in the mornings because, that's really the time when I can get my work done, So yeah, I mean, it's hard for all of us that way. It's not the easiest, but we still do it every week.
For you, the listener.
For you, the listener.
Just an observation there. Kind of a second thing here is one part of being a new pastor, and as you're still getting to learn your congregation, when you're going to do stuff and you're not sure how it'll go over exactly. Maybe like starting up a podcast, right? Or in this case, I'm going to be doing a Bible study for LWML. We're having our meeting tomorrow. And I'm going to be talking about reading verses in context. And we're going to go over Psalm 46:10. So, perhaps I'll leave that up to you guys, maybe to Vicar, to try to see why Psalm 46:10 might be something where you need to take the context into consideration and not just, having that verse plastered on a very beautiful sign above your dining room table or something. So anyway, this is Baldwin with a Western Update, and you guys take it easy. We'll be sending stuff out to you again later.
Well, that was awfully nice. So I see 15.0 is shaking his head.
17.
17, excuse me.
Yeah, because I was doing a Bible study, on Mondays with looking at verses in context. Mm-hmm. And so as soon as I turn this in, it's "Be still and know that I am God." It's like, oh, it's the Hallmark card. Because the verse right before that, verse 9, "He makes war cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire." Like, yeah. Context is really important when you're reading stuff.
Mm-hmm.
11 might be better for a card. "The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge."
Because, it's the Psalms. The Psalms are always good. They're always good to have, even just that single verse. But this is Psalm 46. This is where Luther got the words to "a mighty fortress."
Yeah, I would say, what Baldwin says is people just,
they
take a time.
They look at one verse, and it's like, oh, this is so nice. But
it's good to just be quiet. But it's really, he's saying to the winds and the waves and the armies and to be quiet, shut up, isn't it?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you think you can take my people? Well, you got to go through me first.
Right.
Right? He makes desolations of the earth, as it says. Yeah.
Yeah, the words "be still" are to all the troubles, not to the people who are being troubled.
Exactly. So, womp womp.
So, it's still a nice verse to hang on your wall.
Yep, sure is. We should do just terrible verses for like a Hallmark calendar, because I think that would be awesome. Verses completely taken out of context.
I thought you were gonna say something like Judas went and hung himself.
Well, that too. We could do that one. For example, from Matthew 4, "All these things I will give you if you will fall down and worship me." Just put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah. Or a t-shirt, a card, or a perfect greeting for an ordination.
I like it. So, all right.
There's a top 12 in there somewhere.
Yes. Look for it.
I might actually have 12 verses that are out of context, because we were doing that for the Bible study, popular verses, and then looking at the context. So
there you go.
There might
Vicar.
be 12 already.
You got this. Make it so.
Next week
on the Clerical Errors podcast. And coming up for our 100th episode, we will do the top 100 passages taken out of context.
Ooh.
You got it, Vicar.
You got it, man. I'll pray for you.
That's right. And I'm already picking out the verse for your ordination.
What you will do quickly.
Flee fornication.
Oh, boy.
No, you should do the Ezekiel one with the two sisters. Oh, man.
I'm going to get such strange looks from the district president when that happens.
Yeah.
Well, I was in seminary.
It might be worth it.
In seminary, Homiletics 4, which is a sermon making class, and I had a classmate of mine who and you could choose your own text for this. For a wedding sermon, he had it from Exodus where Zipporah circumcises their son and then smears the foreskin, the bloody foreskin on Moses' feet and says, "You are a bridegroom of blood to me." And
Who was the professor for this?
Oh, boy.
I think I might know the student.
Yeah, maybe you do. And it was, who was the professor? Quill. I think it was Quill.
Okay, I just wanted to see if I could picture the reaction properly.
So it was amazing.
Was it a good sermon?
I'll bleep it out. Who do you think it was? You think?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know it was.
So, but
Man, if he was on the podcast, though.
Oh gosh.
We would be number one.
Oh, I'm so glad I wouldn't have to edit that. Oh my goodness.
All right.
I'd have to listen to it.
I mean, we're giving you a lot of editing today already, so go ahead.
all right. So, probably not the best passage to choose for a wedding sermon, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So, just because bridegroom is in there, you maybe shouldn't always use that. Just saying, guys.
Well, do you remember what the point was, though?
No, I was in shock the whole time, trying not to laugh.
Yeah. You didn't have a skin in the game, did you?
I didn't have any skin in the game.
Oh,
Nope. Oh, man. And neither did Gershom.
All right.
So, ba-doom.
All right. You know, we never did that news that bothers Berg. We did one of them, but we didn't.
I didn't think it was worth hitting both. If you want to hit it, we can hit it.
Let's try it.
Because I also have a news that bothers Berg.
Oh.
And I think mine will bother him much more than you.
All right. We're going to do a competition of news that bothers Berg. Which one will bother Berg more? Okay? I'm going to do the Berg.
Take control of the mouse and do yours.
All right. Peter, play the intro.
That was pretty good. I like
Is that
it.
good?
Yeah.
You got to have more oomph in the play.
Peter, play the intro.
There we go. Yep.
There you go.
There's fake news, there's real news, then there's real news that Berg wishes was fake. It's time to hear news that bothers Berg.
All right, so my story is first. So this one, my entry is from something called express.co.uk. It's probably legit. This is a life after death situation. And a man claims he was told the meaning of life in a near-death experience. Okay, so a man who temporarily died believes he's given insight into the meaning of life and now believes we are all interconnected beings who are a part of one giant organism.
Okay.
That sounds like Buddhism.
Yeah, in a sense. I mean,
funny how that's always the default.
yeah, I mean, it's more of a. It depends on what kind of Buddhism. Mahayana, definitely.
Yeah.
More Hinduistic.
Okay.
More of a blob god type of thing.
So does that bother you, that one?
No, I want to actually hear what he like. What does he believe about it? Like, are we like the neutrons? Are human beings like the neutrons in this giant organism's brain, or
He says,
like does this organism eat? Like, is it a galaxy that consumes other galaxies?
well, he clinically died for a few minutes after suffering from a heart attack. Before he could revive, he believes he caught a glimpse of the afterlife, where he is offered an insight at what it means to be alive.
Huh.
Do you know what, though, this does sound like a little bit? This sounds like when people take hallucinatory drugs.
Yeah, like Philip K. Dick.
Okay, explain.
He's the one who wrote like Blade Runner, and
Right.
the original name of the book was "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep," which is great. He also wrote Man in High Castle, and he wrote Total Recall.
Okay.
Right? Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Arnold.
Which, I mean, those are pretty trippy, right? That dude was doing a lot of LSD during the 60s, and that's where he got a lot of his ideas.
So he says, which is a common thing, that I think when people have some sort of a trippy experience, that they all of a sudden, I've now gained better insight. Mm-hmm. Okay. He said that he spoke telepathically to unknown beings who reveal that all living things on Earth are connected.
So he passed out while watching Star Wars.
Is it the Force? Like, I mean, honestly, like, I want to see, like, the mythology behind this. Like, is this being growing? Are there other beings like it? Like, what's, like, the destiny of this being?
And then he says, I was told that we will all go back many times until we have learned what is needed to ascend to a higher state of being.
Oh, okay. This sounds like a lot of that
Hinduism.
60s and 70s,
Reincarnation.
well, reincarnation. That was a big thing in the United States, too. All these yogis came over here, and not the cool, like, Yogi Bear, but more of, and they started communing with demons. I'm sure this guy, like, either had a hallucination, but probably more. I mean, I don't know. These beings that he met and spoke with telepathically were probably demons. You know? I mean, because somebody's going to believe this nonsense. So.
And I believe that aspect of it, because people who are in those situations, they say, I'm going to open up my mind. I'm going to open things up. I'm going to take substance to really open my mind up.
Right.
And what are they opening up their mind to?
Mm-hmm. New Age, that's what it's called. This is like New Age nonsense.
So it didn't really bother you that much.
I mean, I just, like, it just left me wanting more. Like, build me a world,
All right, so next story, Peter.
Yeah, this is a press release released a few days ago from the Iowa Satanic School. It reads, Iowa Satanic School has published our first press release congratulating the Iowa State Senate Republicans for passing SF 159. The school recognizes the considerable efforts of the Iowa GOP to move forward with the school choice for our state. This will give Iowa families the choice to seek educational opportunities outside of public schools using their taxpayer-funded Student First Scholarship to make Iowa's first satanic school a reality.
Peter, I think you won.
Although it's funny because, I don't know, I think this is all a scam because I want to say that the SF 159, it's only about those schools that don't hit the 40th percentile. Mm-hmm. So it's a bill that only covers a small percentage of schools in Iowa. And, all these teacher unions are hollering about it, but it's not an actual, like, real voucher program. And secondly, it's like now, it's just really funny because, like,
I like how it has Brad Zahn, Satanic Temple supporter, District 20.
like, I mean, like, doesn't anybody else find this hilarious that the satanic people are saying, oh, hey, good job, GOP. The GOP usually, like, has really welded itself to, like, the evangelical, the American Evangelical Party.
Which is probably what this group is trying to do. They're trying to scare actually religious Christian people into thinking that.
Maybe. I mean, that would be. I think they are actually, because they actually do want to start a satanic school, right?
Okay.
Well, yeah.
And now we got to run with this idea.
Well, the name would be easy. It'd be H.P. Lovecraft Memorial Elementary School, home of the Fighting Cthulhus.
There you go.
Only if you're a Derelith fan.
They say in here, congratulations to and then they say specific senators and whatever, who worked hard to answer the call of Baphomet to give all families the chance to be educated without curriculum regulations.
I mean, this is almost more of a stunt than anything. I
think so.
In a way, I mean, this is like 10th level trolling. I mean, it's amazing.
At which point does this become a Babylon Bee article?
This is not the Bee article. It's great. because I mean, these people don't actually like. If they're the kind of Satanists that I'm thinking, they don't actually believe that Satan is a real person. They believe that he's a personification of freedom and emancipation and, that kind of stuff. So, like, to say they answered the call of Baphomet, I mean, it's all just, like, tongue-in-cheek.
Right.
I mean, they're probably atheists or agnostics with maybe some spiritual deal who want freedom is basically,
or people who think that teaching Christianity is on par or just as evil.
But that's the thing is like this school, I mean, the public schools don't teach Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, like
right. But so their point is I think probably what they're making is well, as ridiculous as this might sound to some of you who think differently than satanic groups, this is how we feel about Christian churches or schools getting a voucher.
Maybe. I mean, I think they're actually sincere. I think they want the voucher system in order to fund their own school with their own tax money. And I mean, in principle, I'm not opposed to that. I mean, I think that public education is actually.
Would you go out in your school playing in basketball?
No. No. We probably wouldn't do that. But I mean, this is the thing. I think the greater thing besides these Satanists is, like at least they're open and honest about what they're doing. Like the public schools are godless on a fundamental level because they have to be. Mm-hmm. And that's what our tax dollars are going to pay for. I mean, I would rather be free and start up parochial schools, do homeschooling or whatever, so that way I can teach my children the one thing that actually matters, which is Christ and Him crucified. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, especially with the way I have a feeling it's all going to go now that we don't know the difference between boys and girls anymore, where boys who identify as girls can now, compete in the same athletic things, I mean, so.
I'm not going to brag, but I would have dominated.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Babylon Bee article that says Bear, who identifies as a human, breaks all of the wrestling records. It's like, yeah, of course. But so, I mean,
I can't wait for a 40-year-old man to identify as a 17-year-old.
I'm offended by that statement. I've been
You're
told
right.
I dress like a teenager once in a while.
I said 40, not 50.
Okay.
I think there's been people who have done that already.
burn.
There are people who've done that?
That are claiming, that they're young, they identify as younger than they actually are.
What a bunch of babies.
But anyway, so yeah, no, I mean,
it's where we're at, man.
Yeah, well, I got more of a reaction out of Peter's, but I do think it starts a great conversation about what should Christian churches do to be able to provide Christian education for their members, and I think that's a huge and important discussion. We didn't have any parochial schools where I grew up, and so we had what was called a Wednesday school from 3rd grade all the way up, where we learned Reformation history, hymns. By the time we left Sunday school, we had memorized the catechism at least 3 to 4 times. Mm-hmm. You, on the other hand, went to a parochial school because you lived in Fort Wayne, where there are a number of them. And I believe you went to a parochial school too, right, in Norfolk?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think as things progress the way that they're progressing in our world, we need to be looking at better and more efficient ways to educate the church's youth because, let's face it, they are surrounded by a culture that is not just godless, but even anti-God in a lot of cases. Witchcraft and neo-paganism is on the rise in America. And the people who are Christians know way less about the Bible than what their grandparents knew. And so I think as the church, we need to be thinking about ways that we can offer a better education through more models. I mean, whether that be things like podcasts or finding teachers or whatever. I think we actually need to put more emphasis on that, because if we don't educate our children on what God's word says, the world is going to educate them, and then they won't be Christian anymore. So I think that's just so I guess that's where that leads me, is that we're maybe things need some what we call red teaming.
Right.
Sticking with the whole code red thing, right? Find out where the structural flaws are in our educational systems right now, like with Sunday school. Is Sunday school enough? Is the way we do confirmation enough? What do we actually need? So, and I think that's and if you guys, if the listeners have any ideas.
Where can they get a hold of us?
Well, they could email us, feedback@clericalerrors.org. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/clericalerrorspodcast, and on Twitter @clericalerrorsp.
At me, bro.
P for podcast.
And note to one of our listeners, Kendra, thank you for the kind words. She mentioned that she finds our podcast very helpful in the time. I'm not exactly sure, remember how she worded, but that in difficult times, it's nice to have someone that you can listen to and enjoy and laugh. So we're happy to be there for you.
Absolutely.
So, and also, if you like listening, you can also let someone else know. We're coming up on 100 episodes, and we would like to get more people listening. Although we've had actually a good month when it comes to downloads, but the more the merrier.
But yeah, if you want to see something different on the show, please let us know. If you want us to bring something back or whatever. I mean, we're actually here to, we're here because of you guys. So
And have fun.
Yeah.
And while we're shilling, you could always rate on iTunes, and I think Spotify has a rating. Wherever you can rate, give us some 5 stars, and
Facebook has a rating.
Really helps.
Yeah, and we got a
Really
pretty good rating so far. So I think we need to end this. Thank you for listening. I'm Bollhagen.
I'm Berg.
And I'm Vicar.
And may your
Krakenbruces be squishy.
Thank you for joining us. This podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Questions, thoughts, concerns? You can contact us on Facebook at facebook.com/clericalerrorspodcast, on Twitter @clericalerrorsp for podcast, or email us at feedback@clericalerrors.org. Thanks for listening to Clerical Errors. See you next time.